Konnichiwa, Warpugs. Here we are with Reggie, who has spawned in, quite simply put, the very next high-budget anime to come across our desk in the last, I don't know how long. This anime is going to basically redefine what anime is all about. It's going to do to the anime scene what Solo Leveling did to the anime scene, and fronting it at the same time. Can feudal Japan survive the zombie apocalypse in Total War Warhammer 3? Now, I'm not saying anything, okay? I'm not saying anything, but I'm just saying here, okay? I'm just saying, if this isn't a plot for an anime, it should be one at this point. We're combining 28 Days Later plus, giant rats plus Japan dark fantasy. It's bound to be nightmarish. I don't understand why we can't have nice things anymore. But, okay, so here's the deal, okay? We're gonna sit here. We're gonna check this out. If you have not subscribed to Reggie yet, you're gonna go subscribe to Reggie. That's what you should do, Just saying. If you like on this video, it's gonna be in the description below. Do the same for me, because I'm fat. I don't know another reason besides that. Warpugs, we are close to 40K. We are right on the cusp of it. Weird how things work out, ain't it? Let's jump into this. The Green Drop Man is now going to detail the finest new manga in Japanese history. Let's go.
When you think of feudal Japan, you're probably imagining its strict warrior culture and military dictatorships.
Okay.
But what you really need to consider is, could it survive the zombie apocalypse? Well, that's what we're going to figure out in today's video, because we'll be playing Warhammer Total...
I love the fact that he's using this music right now. Cowboy Bebop is my childhood.
War 3 post-zombie outbreak. In this world, 90% of the map is controlled by the undead.
Cool.
And each vampire lord starts the game with dozens of armies full of zombies.
That's
by this
great.
point, most factions have become extinct, and there's only a handful of resistance groups fighting to survive. We will be playing as the noble Japanese, isolated in the Far East.
Okay.
Our goal is to unify Japan, create a formidable army, and destroy the four main undead factions responsible for the apocalypse. Can we utilize the might of the samurai to restore order to this world, or will we become just another body in the army of the dead?
This is most definitely an anime. This is 100,000% the next anime plotline. I'm just saying, it's going to happen.
There's only one way to find out.
Let's
but
go.
Before we go any further, I have to tell you something. 7
What?
months ago, I began a revolutionary initiative to save the homeless population by getting them horny. It's a long story.
I don't think that really helps them. I just think it makes it more uncomfortable to be around them at some points. I'm just saying, especially when you give them Shy Lily Gamer Subs covers. I'm just saying.
And you'll be surprised to hear it didn't work. I failed my fellow man because I left them in the unsavory hands of anime women.
Plop, 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 plop. Get pregnant, get pregnant!
I mean...
Hey, it's Smug! Hi, Smug!
Who's really behind that camera, Alana? For all we know, it's 3 Discord mods in a trench coat.
It
Point
is.
is, if you want to do something right, do it yourself.
Okay.
Which is why I partnered with Gamer Subs to take matters into my own hands.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, they made me hot.
Hey, yo! Reg! What are you doing?
Look upon my supple body and think, dear God.
Oh my god. I gotta get another cup, babe. I gotta get another cup.
Why?
Because Reggie did one.
What is it?
Look at this! Hold on, I gotta back it up. I'm backing it up. There we go.
I
There we
want
go.
one.
There we go. Yeah, you see?
I want that cup.
There we go. It's like if I got reincarnated as a slime, the Ichi version.
I
Of
know,
course,
I
of
love
course,
it.
of
That's
course
what I
you want
wanted.
Of course you want this one.
Dear
I do
God,
want that.
science
That's
has
the
gone
first
too
cup I've
far.
seen that I'm actually interested in owning.
What?
That's the first Gamer Subs cup I've seen.
Whatever. She wanted cat ears, and then she let the dog chew the cat ears off, and then
But
she
yeah, that's the
and
lid.
then she steals
Hey,
my cup.
I just bought the lid.
Okay.
Because it had cat ears.
Okay.
And the dog ate it.
Okay.
But I want the slime cup. You can buy it for me.
But that's just how committed I am to the cause. And my only other option was to pay an animator to turn me into a gay rat. So
Very oddly specific. It's almost like he priced this.
count yourself lucky. Long story short, for a
He did
limited
it
time,
anyway.
we're selling a Reggie shaker cup for all of your drinking needs.
There we
I
go.
love mine so much, I physically consumed it. Now it'll be with me forever in the form of millions of microplastics coursing through my veins.
That's how you
But
do
if that's
that.
not your style, we also have a branded hat.
Ooh.
This thing is saving me a ton of money on psychiatrists. Because
Yes.
instead of spending thousands of dollars to receive a diagnosis, I just wear this hat in public, and everyone implicitly understands that I am mentally ill. I don't want to
This is... We need these. And we need these. Badly. I think it would save a lot of time and effort.
brag, but this is an excellent value proposition.
Mhm.
So I recommend pre-ordering your merch today, or else I might just get desperate. Alright.
I'm just saying, I had a feeling he already did this, and then he just, very next scene confirms, okay, we're gonna have to get that.
Right, now back to the video.
Let's
Here
go.
we are in the beautiful fantasy world of pre-anime Japan. My name is Shingen Takeda of the
Shingen-
Takeda clan,
okay.
and I'm a provincial daimyo, which means I spend most of my time exploiting local farmers
Of
and
course.
beating the ever-living shit out of my neighbors. Some might say it's the perfect life, but
Yes.
there's one problem.
What's
We've
that?
got way too many Chinese guys. In fact, there's also some Egyptians and even a few furries. Point is, if we want to survive the zombie apocalypse, we're going to need to unify Japan under a singular identity. There are
Okay.
a few options for
The Greater Asian Co-Prosperity Spear sounds like a good idea right now. And that, I did not realize that because I think that's the first time I've ever said that. I've heard it 1,000 times, but I've never really said it. I think that might be the most linguistically challenging faction I've ever heard of throughout history.
achieving this, but above all else, I believe in historical accuracy, which is why
oh.
I'm going to kill everyone,
Of
starting
course.
with this guy.
All
I'm
right.
not necessarily doing this because he's Chinese, though that would be historically accurate. I'm doing it because his goddamn name is 30 pages long, and whenever I select him in the diplomacy screen, it
What the hell is even that?
stretches out somewhere into the Atlantic Ocean. You see, when you have a name this long, it dehumanizes you, because
Right.
people don't even try to remember it. Instead,
He's like a custodes, okay?
they just give you terrible nicknames like Dick Stroker and Ass Master. Every Thanksgiving, your grandmother says to you, "Hey, cum goblin, pass the gravy," and then she spits in your eye
There you
because
go.
she doesn't respect you.
True.
Gradually, your sense of identity is eroded, and you sink into a deep depression
And yes, I am out of gamer subs. We got someone in the mail.
before lying down on the highway. I think in light of that nightmarish reality, killing this guy is honestly the nicest thing we could do for him.
Okay.
So we start by taking 2 of his settlements and then setting up an ambush outside his capital. Luckily, he's too busy alphabetizing his names to notice, so he walks right into it.
Okay.
At face value, our army is composed primarily of impoverished rice farmers. However, the enemy army is mostly crows, so I think we've got a chance. Setting up
No, you really just don't. Have you seen what crows do to rice fields? I'm just saying.
the ambush, I attack the left side with a few units of samurai, and turn the right side into a peasant gangbang. After a few minutes, thousands are dead, and Japan is victorious.
Yay!
I can already feel my ultra-nationalism rising. After that, I spent a few turns culturally assimilating the Tomb Kings by stabbing them repeatedly with a wakizashi. Meanwhile, in Southeast Asia, the first undead overlord Helman Gorst is quickly expanding his empire through the destruction of resistance factions. Once
The French.
he gets past these French armies, he'll share a maritime border with us, which is really bad.
Yes.
But we don't have time to worry about that, because I just declared war on Sinch, and I'm taking all of his territory. Also, I've unlocked a new mount, which I definitely know how to ride. The Sinchian conflict culminated in one final battle at his northernmost province.
I know I said this is anime, but quite seriously, now we've crossed over the Atlantic, and now, the Pacific, and now we're in the area of Western animation as well, because he is quite literally Family Guy's Surfing Bird, okay?
Siege armies are usually threatening because of how many ranged units they can field. So to counter this, I've researched and developed matchlock rifles.
Oh.
You might not think this is a big deal,
It
but
is.
let me give you a choice. You can either get attacked with funny bisexual magic, or if you prefer, I can blow your face off with a black powder musket. I know which one I'd pick. Anyway, the battle got underway, with trebuchets bombarding the enemies and our muskets controlling the skies. Following this up with a full charge, things quickly devolved into a large-scale woodland melee, where I attempt to utilize my complete disregard for casualties to slowly beat our enemies into submission.
There you go.
Just as things were getting interesting, the game crashed.
Oh.
Which leads us to my next point.
What's
if you're
that?
watching this video and thinking, wow, Japan is very cool, I want to be Japanese. No, you don't.
Oh.
This mod is a direct pipeline to Neo-Luddite terrorism, because it has the
Go on, sir.
approximate stability of a landmine in a blender. It's not a matter of if it'll blow up, it's a matter of how many innocent lives will be caught in the blast.
Yay!
Every time my game crashes, I add 500 words to my manifesto, and whenever it isn't crashing, it's T-posing my commanders,
There we
changing
go.
the aspect ratio on their portraits, and making them ride their mounts underground.
There we go.
In fact, I couldn't use my general for that entire last battle, because he spawned in on a horse 70 feet in the sky. Couldn't move at all. Point is,
Hey.
I'm willing to be radicalized into bombing a data center just so I can roleplay as the Shogun of Japan. But I don't recommend it. Anyway, after
No, we really shouldn't. Just don't.
After reloading the save, I did the honorable thing and auto-resolved
Of
Siege
course.
into oblivion. The
Yay!
only people left to resist us now are the Skaven. And now that my commander isn't doing the Skyblock challenge, I'm headed straight for them. I was lucky enough to attack their capital while most of their armies rode at sea, so I only had to kill millions of rats instead of billions.
Yeah.
But any battle against the Skaven is and always will be a monumental pain in the ass.
True.
Also, we crashed.
Again.
After exterminating the rats, we controlled most of the country, and I established a defensive alliance with the only other Japanese faction. Now, after hundreds of years of bloodshed, Japan is finally unified under a singular vision,
One Japan, one society.
which means we can devote all of our resources to creating the most vile pornography imaginable.
There you
This
go. Now we're cooking with gas. Now we're cooking.
is the samurai way.
Yes.
Also, I guess we should do something about the millions of zombies.
Yeah,
In
that
fact,
might be a
by
good
this
idea.
point, the undead hordes have completely obliterated French Vietnam, and Hellman is now actively extorting us for money. Money which I gladly pay him, because he's the strongest faction in the game, and the endgame crisis hasn't even triggered yet. Up to this point, we've been practicing the isolationist policy of Sakoku. In case you're not familiar with this principle, allow me to put it into a hypothetical situation.
Johnny Somali. Johnny Somali, that's a tragedy of errors in a human being, I swear to God.
Your name is John Fortnite.
Oh.
You live in Section 8 housing with
Nice.
your father, who forces
No.
you to refer to him as the Shogun.
No,
your
thank
mother,
you.
the Emperor, and approximately 12 to 18 million siblings.
Oh.
One day, an African dandy knocks on your door and asks you for directions to the gas station. You slice him in half with a katana
Why?
for violating your national sovereignty, and then your father exiles you to live the rest of your life in the backyard for the crime of interacting with a foreigner. This is Sakoku, and it has kept us safe up to this point.
I need more foreign policy summations from him. I really do.
But once the endgame crisis hits, we won't be
Oh,
able to hide
God.
any longer, because all zombie factions will declare war on us and we'll probably die. So to improve our odds of survival, we need to continue expanding and developing our empire. Which leads me to my next point. Taiwan.
Oh.
I like you, and I want you.
Right now, it's under the control of the Taiwanese Dark Elves, but I'd like to turn it into a military base to train samurai.
Okay.
So let's get to work. I send my navy to Taiwan on a diplomatic mission. I kill the Taiwanese and rename all of their settlements. This is the equivalent of stealing someone's barbecue before scratching off the serial number and repainting it. Basically, foolproof.
Yay!
I also forged alliances with the Filipino High Elves, because with 90% of the world taken over by zombies, it's probably bad policy to keep killing the only survivors. Now that we've got land, military infrastructure, and unmitigated ultra-nationalism...
For real, though?
We are easily one of the strongest remaining human factions. So, what's our next move?
Yes.
I ask myself this question, and my inner Japanese daimyo screams the answer.
What is that?
Right now, it's controlled by the undead, with a small South Korean resistance led by Lokir Felhard. I sail my navy in that direction to help out. However, before I can get there, I receive terrible news.
Oh no.
The endgame crisis just popped, and Helmut Gorst is looking at me the same way Jeffrey Dahmer looks at gay black men in the suburbs. So that changed my priorities just a bit. Good luck, South Korea. I'm sure you...
What's Reggie's flavor of gamer subs called?
I don't know. Reggie, do you have a flavor of gamer subs? I don't know.
You'll be fine.
The Vietnam War,
Our win
hooray!
conditions for this campaign are simple. Destroy the 4 dominant undead factions. And since Helman is right next to us, we may as well start there. At the moment, our main army, led by Shingen, is composed of highly trained samurai and a few riflemen.
Cool.
While our other 2 armies are primarily peasants and a couple of long-range cannons. It's not much, but hopefully it's enough. Landing at Saigon, we quickly capture the settlement. But it turns out we are the wrong type of Asian, because the magical forests of Vietnam are completely uninhabitable to us. So I decide to donate the land to the French resistance in exchange for them joining the war. Our blitzkrieg against the undead was going quite well. We managed to liberate 3 more settlements and sell them back to the French. But our success was short-lived.
Wow, the French in Indochina. Isn't that...
Because after 5 turns of casualties, vampiric attrition, and a low replenishment rate, my army of hardened samurai warriors may as well be an army of femboy twinks. Because with a combined 50 health, we're looking awfully submissive and breedable. My conclusion from losing 5,000 men in just a couple turns? Our artillery is trash, and we need anti-cavalry. Because our rifles can't do shit when an 1,100-pound horse is tap dancing on their balls.
This is highly accurate, and I don't think you guys realize how highly accurate this is. A horse that size stepping on your scrotum would be an extremely bad day.
So, for attempt 2, I brought in some Naginata samurai and started upgrading our units with Sakura blessings. However, our downfall, as always, was trusting the French. Because I accepted a battle to defend their settlement against the undead. But these chalk-eating, window-licking French bastards deployed facing the wrong direction and got slaughtered before I could even show up. Maybe, just maybe, we're on the wrong side of history. Anyway, everyone died, and I was back to twiddling my thumbs in the Pacific Ocean.
Yay.
As if that wasn't bad enough, the undead launched a surprise invasion of Taiwan, taking half of the island before I could even react. If Taiwan falls, we lose access to all samurai units, so this is kind of a big deal. I managed to cobble together an army of swordsmen and reinforce it with Ronin from the mainland. This culminates in one final battle for control of the island. We establish a defensive formation, and the undead armies wash upon us. For every zombie we kill, 2 seem to take its place. It wasn't until our archers started focus firing the enemy leadership that things started going in our favor. Before long,
Look at the mass of bodies. Oh my god. That is just a field of fertilizer.
Battle was over, resulting in a massive victory for mankind, with 6,500 undead casualties. With that taken care of, there's only one thing left to do. Fellas, grab your M16s and jungle heroin, because we're going back to Vietnam.
Going back, baby. Yeah!
For this second invasion, I adopted the approach of fanning out my armies and attacking Helman on multiple fronts.
So you're going to invade the mainland using a combination of naval invasions. It could work.
Then I realized that's stupid as hell. Helman's weakness is that he has to defend all of his fronts, which allows us to instead group up 3 or 4 stacks and overpower him at a singular point. By this point, I've successfully vassalized the French, High Elves, and the Japanese. So I coordinated their armies to distract the undead in the north, while I took our navy to the deep south and established a beachhead. It doesn't take long for the locals to come greet us, and I'm sure they're expecting us to instantly capitulate and suck them attacking from behind. But
Oh
we've
my
got a secret
God.
weapon, the Shogun's first samurai.
Oh, come
Usually,
on.
a singular unit cannot sway the tide of a 10,000-man battle. But this regiment of renown cost 4,000 gold just to recruit. And that's
Oh.
because they're absolutely and completely busted.
Every single one of them has anime protagonist powers. Okay.
They have triple the attack of our usual samurai.
Oh my
They're
God.
unbreakable, armored, armor-piercing, and they can even deflect projectiles with their swords. Truly, this is Japanese apotheosis.
Yes.
So when I tell you that we attacked 3 undead armies and absolutely crucified them in open combat, you shouldn't be surprised. You also shouldn't be surprised when I explain that it took me 9 hours to do this.
Oh.
Because every time I loaded the fight, my game would crash. One of our units in the army is causing the crash, and I spent several hours finding who was responsible. Turns out it was my Wish.com Naruto. Not his existence in a general sense. In fact, I have a lot of retarded people in my army.
There
They
you
fight
go.
very well. The issue was that Mr. Uzumaki was trying to ride a horse, and the game didn't like that shit one bit, so it crashed 20 times in a row. Yet
Oh
again,
my God.
our greatest struggle in the zombie apocalypse is against our own mod pack. Anyway, upon polite...
Let's go. Yes, the horse. The horse is there. Go and see to the horse. Or is he pointing to the sheep? Maybe the ninja will ride a sheep.
revoking Naruto's license, we're back on track. After breaking through Hellman's first response force, there was nothing to stop us from carving up his southern provinces and selling them to the French.
Yeah, there we go.
We also deployed half a dozen ninjas throughout his territory to monitor his troop movements. But eventually the fun had to end after I came across what I describe as the Indigestible Wad, a collection of 8 or 9 undead armies traveling in one giant doom stack. This is a problem, and
Yes.
I have the solution.
What's that?
Earlier in the campaign, a sex criminal was covering us in his bodily fluids, and our solution
Why? That is just... That's a little bit too much information there.
was gun. God bless America.
Yes.
And now, when a giant horde of undead creatures are barreling down on us, our solution will be bigger gun. The big...
If it's legit. Have you seen Kentucky Ballistics? I mean, it is a thing, okay? You just get a bigger caliber and the problem will eventually go away. Eventually, when you scale the caliber up to the problem, it will go away.
Cannon Samurai are Tier 3 ranged units with an absurd stat line. You may be wondering what's so big about these cannons, and I'll tell you. It's the projectiles. We're not shooting our enemies with bullets anymore. We're smoking them in the face with flaming dicks. Because each projectile is 12 inches long and hurts like hell.
Oh
That
my
dragon
God.
would be proud. I tested these out in some battles against the undead, and it quickly became clear to me this shit is absolutely busted. Because not only does it do massive and accurate damage, but it doesn't even need a line of sight. So as long as you're within 200
Dude.
range, you're dying. Random skeletons charging across a field? Try again. Senile dickhead flying through the sky? Back to the retirement home, Grandpa. And most importantly, cavalry charges now turn into cavalry stains on the ground. August 6th, 1945. The
Why are we doing this to ourselves? Come on.
United States of America did the Oppenheimer Shuffle on Hiroshima, and at that point, the war was over. But it took another 8 days for the Emperor to admit his defeat. With the invention of these big cannon samurai, that's exactly where we're at now.
Okay.
Emperor Helmo Hito has virtually no counterplay, apart from praying that we run out of ammo. So we
Yeah.
spent the next 15 turns obliterating all of his armies and strengthening our allies. By the time his faction went extinct, we controlled all of Southeast Asia through a series of French, Japanese, and Filipino puppet states.
Play this in your next Hearts of Iron 4 playthrough. I dare you. I want to see how it goes.
That's 1 zombie faction down, 3 to go.
There we
so
go.
let's check on the others and see how they're doing. Manfred von Karstein once controlled the entirety of the Neo-Assyrian undead empire, but in what can only be described as a generational fumble, he somehow created 20 resistance factions, which are now taking turns beating the fuck out of him. So we should probably go put him out of his suffering.
Yeah,
on the
gotta
other
do
hand,
that.
Heinrich Kemmler has control over all of Ulthuan and most of Bretonia, while Vlad von Karstein has a good chunk of the empire, placing them at strength rank 1 and 2. So what's the plan? Well, a reasonable man might just decide to make 10 full armies of big cannon samurai.
I mean, that's what I'd do. I mean, if you give me enough artillery, I will do horrors. I will do absolute horrors in any game that you put me in, with no mercy or consideration for the Geneva Convention.
But that's exorbitantly expensive, and our
True.
country hasn't yet figured out how to monetize gooning to anime women. So instead, we'll have to settle for some more affordable options. Army 1, 5,000 peasants. Army 2, 5,000 peasants. Army 3, people I actually care about. Army 4, 5,000 peasants with guns. Army 5, a collection of dangerous mythological creatures such as a woman. And finally, Army 6. The only cavalry I could recruit without crashing my game.
Okay.
This is our dream team.
Yay.
Now, let's go save the world.
Do
But
it.
how are we going to get all the way over here? Well, Warhammer...
Just use the layer of infinite... You ever went to go say something, just didn't go? I was going to say the layer of infinite bullshit, but... I still suck at this. I'm still terrible. I'm still bad. Just... I keep on getting worse.
is an excellent game, not just because it actively denies the existence of Australia, but because it believes in hybridized flat Earth theory, where
Now, here's the thing. One of these days, they're going to put Australia into the game, and it's going to be the most horrific place imaginable. Only terror will come from the Australia proxy in this game. Only absolute horrific terror.
the world is flat, but you can circumnavigate it only if you're in a boat and you're teleporting. The
Hey!
mechanics of it aren't clear to me either, but the point is, we're using this sea lane to teleport from here all the way to South America.
Sweet.
When we started this scenario, this continent was almost entirely controlled by a lesser zombie faction, but after 100 turns of resistance fighting, the people of South America have eliminated their undead overlords and replaced them with literal demons. Very cool, South America. Goodbye.
Not a good
Quickly
idea.
ignoring that entire continent, we sail across the Atlantic to arrive on the shores of Manfred's territory. Just
Okay.
when you thought the Middle East couldn't get any more complicated, 30,000 Japanese men stage an amphibious landing in Saudi Arabia.
There
Our
we
first
go.
order of business is to gain control of Sudenburg. The garrison of 3,000 men pissing their pants was no match, and with that, we have a base of operations. Meanwhile,
Nice.
somewhere in the desert, Sheikh Manfred von Karstein is punching the air at the thought of losing his capital to a bunch of impoverished rice farmers. So he issues a fatwa against our lives, and 6,000 of his most violent extremists show up to kill us.
Oh.
That was his biggest mistake, because prior to this moment, he had plausible deniability about having a humiliation fetish, but
The smoke on iDubbbz. Oh my god. I don't even want to talk about iDubbbz. That man fell off so hard, he's still falling. He has fallen to the Earth's crust, is on the way to the core, and I don't know what's going to happen when he hits the core because he's still got places to fall.
after this fight, he's obviously getting off on
Stop
it. Here's
it.
how it went. Our 4 armies against his 4. We can only use 2 at a time, so I choose my main samurai stack and the meme stack of big cannons. After some maneuvering, we establish a defensive shell, and anything that came near the shell got absolutely annihilated. Entire platoons of thousands of enemies gone in an instant. Food nourishes my body, books nourish my mind, and 19 big cannon gunners nourish my soul.
Right.
Occasionally, Manfred's cavalry might barely survive the gunners, at which point they charge headfirst into my spear wall. This is already a bad idea,
Yes.
but after I activate the spear quilt ability, my spearmen gain 600% mass, which means Manfred is basically
Thick.
charging headfirst into a concrete wall. So that was the battle. 20 minutes of shooting everything that moved, and then 10 minutes of stabbing it with spears after it stopped moving.
Yay!
Final result, 250 friendly casualties, 3,500 enemy casualties. Eat shit, Manfred.
There you
Manfred
go.
participated in his next humiliation ritual at the Siege of the Great Pyramid, where he attempted to defend a castle using 90% cavalry. In case you're not familiar, that's like
Dude, that is a really, really piss poor decision.
Attempting to perform open-heart surgery with a Ford F-150. It's just not applicable.
No.
So obviously, we scaled the walls with riflemen and spent 30 minutes putting football-sized holes in all of his units. Not sure what he was expecting, but getting shot 1,200 times was kind of the high watermark of Manfred's career.
Yay!
Because after that, we just casually conquered the rest of his territory. This was boring, but it gave us a chance to forge alliances with Raponce and Volkanovsky the Grim, which
Cool.
helped bolster our income to a massive 15,000 gold per turn. And
It's free real estate.
perhaps more importantly, our alliance with the Empire now allows us to recruit actually good artillery.
Hold on a second. Because we're talking about something that could be considered a war crime. She decided to show up. Aye. Yeah, she decided to show up. Are you happy? No? Okay then.
With Manfred decomposing in the sand and several new allies to control the region, we can move on to the second last undead lord, Heinrich Kemmler.
Yeah, that wasn't a name that came out of nowhere or anything, you know?
About 20 turns ago, Heinrich was doing quite well for himself, controlling all of Ulthuan. But now we can see that not only did Morathi survive the zombie apocalypse, but she actually survived so well that she's invading Heinrich and winning.
Oh.
In fact, she did about half the work for us. So let's capitalize on this opportunity and take the other half of Ulthuan. Arriving there, we fan out and take a big bite out of that donut. Heinrich Kemmler does not respond well to this surprise rimming, and he attacks us at Cairnthel. I deploy
Why did he say that?
our gun cage in the shallow waters. This slows the enemies down as they charge at us, which gives us more time to shoot them in the face. Additionally, Shingen unlocked the Dark Skies ability, which is a map-wide effect that causes flocks of crows to attack all enemy flying units. This regularly kills bats and even Vargeists within 30 seconds, meaning we've got permanent air superiority. The battle started off quite well, with us melting 3 of his commanders right off the bat. However, once his army caught up, things began getting complicated. Defending a 360-degree formation is pretty challenging, especially when your rocket artillery keeps friendly firing your own units. But luck,
You know, depending on how little you care about friendly fire, I mean, the Skaven exists for a reason.
luckily, the undead leadership has a remarkable proclivity for flying headfirst into projectile oblivion. And when
Okay.
the enemy generals are speed-running their own death, it's almost impossible to lose. While our 2 main armies were taking care of that, we split a second battle group to proceed along the northern shores, capturing additional territory until we ran into the Red Duke of Mousillon.
Sweet.
Not only is this man a vampire, but I have credible evidence linking him to a furry VTuber reaction channel, so he had to die. And let me tell you, when we ripped him apart using every Japanese monster on the roster, I felt emotionally enriched on multiple levels. Unfortunately, the undead are resilient, and for the next 20 turns, we had to deal with a continuous piss stream of Parisian vampires sailing across the channel to kill us. In better news, we
Parisian? Parisian?
liberated Lothern and brought Tyrion back to life. Then we
Yay!
started selling him 90% of our Ulthuan holdings. And for a man who was, until very recently, dead, he has a lot of money. Money which I desperately need, because Morathi is extorting us for 25,000 gold each turn.
Ow.
It's not that I'm a fan of financial domination, but the Dark Elves are so sexually deranged that even the most perverse Japanese salaryman would stand no chance against them. So
True.
it's easier to just cooperate with the
I mean, I'm just saying, the Drakari, the Dark Elves from Fantasy and the Drakari from 40k are like, they're the first Japanese anime to have 40k is going to have them in it. I'll just say it like that. And then everybody's going to be shocked like they were the first episode of Goblin Slayer.
the sexual terrorists. By this point, we've taken all of Heinrich's settlements in Ulthuan, established the High Elves as a satellite state, and Morathi is teetering on the edge of flattening our dick with a pasta maker, which means it's time for us to leave. Next objective is Bretonia. Once we purge the undead from this region, then it's on to the Empire for our final target, Vlad von Karstein.
Yep.
Quickly working our way through a naval blockade, we stage our first invasive landing at Lyonesse. This is a massive city for the undead, so I'm expecting heavy resistance and possibly some suicide bombers. However, instead, as soon as we arrive, the enemy commander jumps in a boat and sails 500 miles away. I almost feel embarrassed to be at war with these people, but I'm not too embarrassed to farm their garrisons for XP, because now I'm able to give my commanders the Death Squad perk. Call my boys Unit 7.
I knew he was going there. I knew he was going there. I was bracing for impact.
731, because they really out here committing racially motivated war crimes and experimenting on the locals. Speaking of human experimentation, I think something is deeply wrong with my ninjas. Too many chromosomes or not enough, I'm not sure. But every time I load the save, it gets worse. Willfully ignoring the uncontrolled mutation of my soldiers, we push forward, capturing several undead cities with minimal resistance. Heinrich did attempt to stop us at one point, but he chose to attack us on a map with a massive choke point when all of our units have rifles. So you can imagine how that went. I take a moment to appreciate Heinrich's situation. According to lore, this man spent 6 years living in the forest, eating tree bark and going insane before selling his soul to the devil to obtain necromantic powers. All of that just for some goofy Asians to show up T-posing on horses and dismantle his entire empire. So
Well, he died as he lived. Alone. Because he's surrounded by the undead, so who cares?
sorry, Heinrich, but I've already depicted you as the virgin and me as the Chad, so you never stood a chance.
True.
The only real casualty of this war was my big cannon meme stack. I got a little too cocky in this battle, and they all died.
Ooh.
One of the saddest days in my life was when my child asked me to buy them a Skibbity Toilet mystery surprise toilet.
The fact that this thing exists, lets me know in every way, shape, and form that we are never leaving this planet. But when we get ready to try and actually leave the system, the aliens are going to show up, hand us one of these, and be like, no, we don't want you out here. We just simply don't want any. You guys stay here. We just don't want any. It's this and gamer girl bathwater and everything else. They just don't want it in the wider galaxy. They're done.
At which point, I had no choice but to abandon them outside a Walmart. But losing this army was even worse. Fortunately, fresh reinforcements just arrived from Japan. 14 Tier 5 samurai at a cost of 8,000 gold per turn. If Heinrich wasn't doomed before, he definitely is now.
Yeah.
So we spread out and violently expunge his presence from Bretonia. Also, the dwarves seem to have performed an ethnic cleansing against the Wood Elves. Truly, the world is healing. In similarly pleasant news, Marathi appears to have extracted some sexual gratification from watching us repeatedly batter the elderly, and now she kind of likes us. Fellas, I think we've got a chance. All that's left is to seal the
No, she's too busy with her own kid. And that's not,
deal. I am a romantic soul, so to impress Marathi, I strike deep into the Empire, capturing Heinrich's final settlement, leaving him with only one army, at which point I joined forces with her to spit roast Heinrich into oblivion. Used to be that buying a girl flowers was enough to impress her, but now apparently even fucking an old man to death in front of her isn't good enough, because not only did we not get her number, but she declared war on us immediately after. The dating economy may never recover.
No.
Now look, we're already saving the world from zombies. We don't have the resources to also save it from perverts. So it's time for some market manipulation.
okay. He's about to do the Bitcoin thing here.
You see, my Bretonian settlements are like a collection of investments, carefully managed and neatly arranged in a dossier. And in 2 or 3 turns, Marathi is going to take a big fat shit in that dossier, which means we have 2 or 3 turns to become financially liquid. So I start selling off all of our Bretonian holdings to anyone with the money. Aquitaine, Karl Franz, even bearded children. Don't care? Here's your settlement. Good luck defending it.
There you go.
Some people might consider this a form of insider trading, but I prefer to think of it as a timely exercise in geographical minimalism. That was a bit of a disaster, but we handled it well. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, trouble is brewing. So
It was free real estate anyway. I mean, Apartment flippers, there you go.
Korea just declared war on us and staged an invasion of northern Japan. With
Why,
all of
though?
our armies in the empire, this is pretty bad.
That
As the
is.
Koreans captured more of our territory, I rushed to assemble an army, but all I could come up with was this. 7 tier 5 samurai against an entire army of dark elf degenerates. Truly, we are doomed. Or at least, that's what I thought, before I realized our samurai can run faster than a goddamn horse. Not only that, but they are completely psychologically unbreakable. So our fight against the Koreans was just a bunch of sociopathic Japanese guys going on an unprecedented killing spree and then chasing down the survivors like wild animals.
They wanted the Gamer Subs Cup.
This is a proud day for all of Japan.
Yes.
Shortly after that, we executed the South Korean president, and their territory was colonized by Mongolian lizards. I'm starting to understand why every Asian hates other Asians. In fact, at this point, our greatest threat is no longer the undead. It's the dozens of warmongering factions that have rushed into the power vacuum left by the undead. But we've got a goal to complete, and Vlad is still alive. Kind of. So let's get back to work.
Let's go.
We begin pouring our armies into the Empire, splitting one group to the south and one to the north to capture as much as we can. We run into our first resistance at Averheim, when 4 undead armies attack us. However, they're attacking our stack of tier 5 samurai, so it turned into an absolute bloodbath. By the end,
How do you literally assemble an army of anime protagonists? I'm just wondering. This sounds broken as all hell.
there was 5,000 corpses in this ditch alone. The good news is only 500 of those were ours, but the undead seem to have a near limitless supply of soldiers, and they're trying to wear us down. We can only win this if we fight them smarter. In advantageous maps such as this one, an open field bisected by a river, leaving 2 bottlenecks for us to utilize. We rush to gain control of them with our samurai, as 6,000 zombies descend upon us like the plague. I'd like to tell you we fought bravely and had some kind of Japanese Thermopylae, but all I can actually tell you is my game crashed 3 times. You see, our mod pack is like a Russian egg homunculus. It's a bastardization of genetic code that is born into this world, writhes around in agony for a few moments, and then dies painfully. And currently, we're getting close to the dying part, because with
What the hell was that? What the hell was that?
each passing turn, the game becomes massively less functional. So we need to finish this challenge before the mod deletes my operating system and hires a Bitcoin assassin to kill me. The issue we're facing right now is that Vlad seems to be turtling all of his armies in a doom stack at Averheim, and we're definitely not ready to kill that. Hypothetically, it is difficult to defeat Prime Ronnie Coleman in martial combat, but if we were to economically cripple him until he could no longer afford to feed himself, then it would become a lot easier. And we're going to adopt that same approach against Vlad. Instead of confronting him at Averheim, we're going to split up and capture the rest of his territory. This should drain his economy and force him to sell off some of his armies. Then, when he's weak and vulnerable, we strike. It took about 15 turns to take all of Vlad's territory and fully encircle him at Averheim. Every so often, he would lash out and send a few armies to fight us, but the samurai body is a well-oiled machine that turns dead people into chopped up dead people. Also, we've just sold his capital city to the dwarves for 200,000 gold.
I think you have the money to pay for anything that you're going to be doing, my guy.
And we're closing in on 1 million, so we can do this all day. At this point, the Japanese noose is tightening around Vlad's neck, and just as I'm getting ready to pull, tragedy strikes. I try to end my turn on turn 206, and then the game clenches its fist, grabs at its chest, and collapses dead. Huh, that's a bit weird. Let's reload and try again. End turn 206, and crash. This shit ain't good. Every time we end turn 206, the game crashes without fail. But we're far too close to our goal to give up now.
Find the ninja riding the horse.
After a brief investigation, I realized every crash takes place when the game is processing the actions of the 7th faction, which happens to be our old friends, the Chinese. Which of course raises the question, what if China didn't exist? Maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't crash. So I downloaded a console command mod and got to work wiping 1.4 billion people off the face of the earth on a hunch. I'm not proud to admit that mass genocide was the first solution I went to, but it fucking worked. After making the Chinese extinct, I gave their territory to Balthazar Gelt and we passed on to turn 207 without a problem. Thank Christ.
And because he has Master of a Metal, he can take care of all the tofu dregs.
With the fabric of reality now patched up using the bodies of 1 billion Chinese, we can finally finish Vlad and end the apocalypse.
Yay!
I link our southern and northern army groups and drunk drive them straight into Vlad's doom stack. We get a massive 4-on-4 clash, which I could just auto-resolve. But where's the spectacle in that?
Right.
We're fighting this one manually. Loading in with a pretty strong army, I get a bit cocky and charge straight across the field at our enemies. Predictably, this was a bad idea, and things get pretty messy pretty fast. Our flanks aren't secure, and the undead are starting to overwhelm us. But at the last moment, we receive a massive influx of reinforcements, which blitz across the field and begin massacring the undead.
Yay!
This is a highly contested battle, and then we just won. Don't worry about how, just know that we definitely didn't crash for the 500th time. With that battle over, Vlad's armies scatter and we take our time grouping up.
Ultramarines versus Tyranids. Ultramarines versus Tyranids at the Battle of the Crag, and then we won.
Up and beating the shit out of each of them individually. In fact, I have so many commanders in this province with the purification trait that we've completely removed all of the vampiric corruption in like 2 turns.
Oh
so
my
Vlad's
God.
remaining armies are now suffering attrition from being undead, being homeless, and some of them also have the plague. Now, as much as I'd love to sit here and watch his final army decompose, I can't risk our mod breaking and forcing another genocide. So I attacked Vlad's last army, kill it, and achieve absolution. After 200 turns and countless human sacrifices, the zombie apocalypse has been stopped, and Shingen Takeda is a hero. So what happens to all of our favorite characters now that the world has been saved?
The season ends before any resolution happens, with a bunch of plot points still left open, and we never get a season 2. That's what happens. That's exactly what happens, because we still have the Marathi plot point. We still have the French plot point. Of course, they're going to betray us. We still have the Philippines as a plot point. And we're never going to get the resolution for that, because Season 2 did not get greenlit.
Well, Mr. Takeda retired back to Japan to continue his career in real estate, eventually causing the 2008 financial crisis and inventing the George Foreman grill to become a multi-millionaire. Marathi continued her world domination before eventually overdosing on Percocet in a Burger King washroom. The continent of South America continues its descent into chaos, with its average inhabitant being considered too dangerous for human contact. Tyrion and the High Elves renounced their titles and opened the world's first gay auto body shop.
Really?
The buttholes. That's what my garage is all about.
The French are their #1 customers. And finally, 1.4 billion Chinese are still missing to this day. The world isn't perfect, but thanks to us, it's got a chance.
There we go. I told you guys, 100% anime energy in this. The sheer fact that many samurai had that level of just god-awful power. I mean, what do you want? Like, what do you want? What more do you want out of a game? Feudal Japan in Warhammer 3 during a zombie apocalypse. That is the perfect scenario for a ridiculous dark fantasy anime. I'm just throwing it out there. It would combine so many elements, and it would be so great, especially when you got the samurai just literally just going in there tearing apart entire segments of the undead population. I mean, there is legitimately nothing else that I need in any kind of show other than that. Gratuitous amounts of violence, world conquest, and Skaven dying. The only thing I need more is the town dying. But until I get that, Warpugs, thank you guys so much for joining me. Again, check down below. We're getting that cup. We're getting that cup. I can't wait to get that cup. I need that shaker cup. Until I get it though, Warpugs, I will catch you guys next time. Join us member Patreon for early access. Check the link in the description below for all of Reggie's links, and be sure to go by him and hit the subscribe button for him. Warpugs 40K right around the corner. Let's go.
I already have that cup in my cart.
You what?
I have that